So when you think about technology at the high end and all these applications, we have to understand that every one of our students have different needs. And for students with disabilities that have significant disabilities, there's still ways to make the technology work for their most important issue of communication and other applications that can develop their own individual skills. It's wonderful to see this take place.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday shine online. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Hello, I'm Ted Alejandro, San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. San Bernardino County is located in the Inland Empire, about an hour east of Los Angeles. We have a very large county, the largest in the country, 22,000 square miles. And in our county, we have 33 school districts, over 550 schools with students serving in small districts, medium districts, and large districts throughout this entire region. This is my 10th year as county superintendent, and I really enjoy being in this position serving the districts we have in our county.
Please explain for all of our listeners, what's the difference between a superintendent and a county superintendent?
Yeah, there's a big difference because district superintendents usually oversee elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. As a county superintendent, we're really an intermediary between the State Department of Education and our local school districts. So we have many required responsibilities that we do, such as approving budgets for fiscal solvency, instructional plans to make sure they meet the state requirements. But one of our biggest passions is to support each and every one of our school districts so they can do better in the areas they're trying to support student achievement with. So the relationships that we build with each individual superintendent and their individual boards of education is extremely important. But we have 2,400 employees. We also serve students directly, but those are not traditional elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. The students we serve are really in three primary areas. The first area is special education. And the students in our special education program are some of the ones with the most significant and serious disabilities. And then we serve students in alternative education programs. And those students are students that are on probation, referred to probation, they're expelled from school, or they're actually in our juvenile hall facilities. And then the third program we serve is state preschool programs for the students that are 3 and 4 years old and about to start their program, some with disabilities, some in our regular education programs. So a variety of programs specifically towards county offices.
That's great. You have a lot of students that directly or indirectly are impacted by what you do every day. Congratulations.
Thank
My
you.
first question for you here today, Superintendent, is how are you supporting the use of technology and or other resources to enhance student learning and engagement?
Now, that's a great question because technology is so critically important. But technology alone doesn't support students. It's the teacher in the classroom. So how can we really utilize technology to accelerate learning and to really leverage the support it can give teachers? We were awarded for Southern California, the state grant for computer science. And we have a team in our digital learning services area that really makes the connections with all of our teachers across our county and provides ongoing professional development so that our teachers are aware of platforms, programs, and other ways that technology can support student achievement. And I'll tell you, especially our younger teachers coming in, they're more used to technology on a regular basis because they've grown up with it. But whether they're young or whether they're older, all of our teachers are really vested in learning what technology can do to help them accelerate learning. And that's the key to success.
Oh, so well said. And there's so many different programs that you have, right? What are the two programs you're the most proud of?
I think the programs we're most proud of is what we're doing right now with AI, because AI is something that's new and it's moving so rapidly. And teachers really need to be aware on how to leverage it in the classroom and have it support their needs. For example, 2 years ago, I don't think many people heard about ChatGPT. Now everybody has heard about it. So how can they use that platform to help with lesson design, help with the individual needs of students? So having teachers become aware of AI, we have a program called Spark 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 on professional development. So we can tailor the needs of AI towards teachers that are either at the beginning levels or moving towards those experienced levels. And that's really important. The other is really how to access information. We've used a Canvas platform to put lessons and programs on this platform so teachers can utilize it for their students. depending upon the needs and requirements of those classes and students. And so having those platforms available. And then when you talk about individual programs, I mean, there's so many different ones out there. iReady, for example, is one that's used at a number of our districts so that the content can be tailored towards the assessments that tell the teachers and the administrators where students are. And then the content that's delivered is aligned with that level of proficiency. So more and more programs are really being designed to customize the learning of students. And when teachers have that training and understanding, that is incredibly useful. Also with the hardware in the classroom. I mean, when I was a principal years ago, we didn't have the smart boards and the projectors and the displays that are so readily available and utilized. Teachers who may have struggled with that in the past, now they are so comfortable with interacting with those smart board devices so that students can gain from the content that teachers can provide to them instantly through the availability of the hardware that's available in classrooms.
Yeah, boy, there's a lot going on, and you know what I'm really impressed about you with? It's you're very tech savvy. I can just see how you know what's going on at all the different levels. I'm super impressed with that. I'm sure it takes a lot of time, but in addition, you mentioned AI, and that's really the next question. AI all over for superintendents. I've interviewed 100 superintendents nationwide across dozens of states. I don't even know how many states, but I do know we just hit 100 in the last day or so. We always ask them about AI and how they're approaching it. I'd love to hear from you. How are you approaching AI? And also a tag along question. Are there any good stories about the productive use? I know you mentioned a little bit about how they're using it to save time and stuff. Are there any stories of teachers using it closer to the student to either teach with it, IEPs, or anything else that you find super interesting that you think other districts or other parents would want to learn about?
We heard about ChatGPT a few years back and came back. None of our principals or superintendents had heard of the term. We brought our lead technology people, including our chief technology officer, engaged immediately to really determine the best way to make it systemic across our county. We didn't want to just start having workshops on AI that some people went to. Instead, we started a level of trainings called Spark 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And we asked all of our superintendents to send their technology leadership teams to that first training session. We had over 160. So mostly superintendents, assistant superintendents, some teachers on assignment. They had that first level of training. And then we went to 2.0, where we went deeper into that area of AI so they can understand how to really look at the specifics of AI and how to make it more successful for what they're trying to accomplish in the classroom. And then we went to that third level, prompt engineering, for example. We started with the basics and then we went to advanced levels so that everybody could understand the power of AI and really utilize it for lesson design and addressing students with needs. And that's just been incredible. It's been successful because all of our districts now have those leadership individuals that are really taking it to their other levels in their individual districts, whether it's principals, teachers on assignment, classrooms, teachers, paraprofessionals, and their whole teams. And I'll give you two other examples, not necessarily related to AI, but how technology has made an impact on all students because we all talk about equity and access to, all programs for every student. But we have this in our programs, we teach special education. And we had this one young man, he's called Eighth, his name is Eighth, and he's out in the high desert of our county. In our special ed programs, they have significant disabilities. So he can't move, he can't talk, he has very limited functions. And usually with students, they have some movement to where we can have symbols displayed through technology programs where they can access that information on the computer that has meaning attached to it so they can build their communication. This young man, none of that worked, but we found a device called the Tobii Dynavox, and it really used eye gazing. So we were able to configure it to his eye gaze, and through that eye gaze, he was able to select meaning on the computer. We adapted it to a tablet, an iPad, and we sent it home to mom and trained her on how to use it with him. And she came in crying a few days later, saying that for the first time, her young son told her he loved her because he was able to communicate that through this device. And so to see that happen with that student was just so powerful for us because we wanted to do whatever we could to help his communication. And now this year we have another young man, he's 9 years old, and he doesn't have that vision. You can't utilize that same equipment for him. But through this technology called electromyography, it has these sensors that go to areas where he does have a twitch on his chin, the top of his palm. we can configure that so he can do the same thing with the computers and start to communicate. So when you think about technology at the high end and all these applications, we have to understand that every one of our students have different needs. And for students with disabilities that have significant disabilities, there's still ways to make the technology work for their most important issue of communication and other applications that can develop their own individual skills. It's wonderful to see this take place.
That's beautiful. What a great set of case studies you have there. And it is really neat that you're able to impact so many students. And back to California, you definitely have the biggest county in all of the state by far. It's absolutely huge. I'm west of you a couple hours or about an hour and a half, and super exciting what you're doing.
And if I could just go back real quickly to AI, because the one group of individuals that are being exposed to AI are our paraprofessionals, our technicians, our clerical staff, other people that are working behind computers each and every day. They may not be in the classroom, but they can support or indirectly support students in many different programs. So Microsoft Copilot, which is coming out soon, we're already positioned to get a district-wide license, county-wide license, so that we can have access to it. And we've immediately started preparing for the training because I can tell you that individuals that are in those positions have creative minds and creative thinking. And once they get behind the power of AI, I think we're going to be shocked at what they can do in supporting our goals to support students. So having a team approach to it so everybody has an awareness of the potential in supporting education is hugely important.
I want to back it up just for a sec for those of you who might be listening or watching us anywhere in the country who might be wondering. There's a couple key phrases we've thrown out, and I really want to break it down. In our smartsocial.com parent engagement events, we talk a lot about AI and how parents can use it to become the homework hero, superintendent. I don't know if we've done calculus as adults in the last year or two, but when you're trying to teach your kids that, there is something called prompt engineering that the superintendent mentioned. And I want everybody to think for just a sec. 20 years ago, we all heard about this thing called Google. And we're like, what is this? And then over the years, we learned if you put something into this search box on Google that we all use perhaps every day, 20 times a day, if you're anything like the nerd that I am, you learned how to Google better, and you learned how to search better. You learned how to put quotes around some stuff, and you learned how to say, I need this to appear in it, but this is an optional word. And you can really get interesting and granular with your Google search. Well, now that we're in AI, you ask AI is a super powered version of Google, and it's owned by one of them's owned by Google, one of them's owned by OpenAI, and there's a dozen others that are smaller. That's called prompt engineering. And I want everybody to think right now, the more accurate stuff you put into the search box that is AI, the better the stuff you're going to get out. Prompt engineering is an interesting whammy. You not only ask your first question and you tell it, hey, take the world's information and I wanted you to put this hat on it, whether it's rebuilding my house, pretend like you're an electrician and give me an answer an electrician would say, or I want to really help a seventh grader who has a little bit of dyslexia, and I want to build this and I want to tie it, the answer into baseball because the student loves the Dodgers, right? I'm biased because I live in Los Angeles. I love the Dodgers too. But I want you to think of prompt engineering parents and educators that are listening to this as your first question, and then you have refinements. Okay, make it shorter. Now I want you to throw in a really neat leadership quote in the middle. And so what the superintendent is saying is prompt engineering is a way of the future. It's using this tool in a careful way. It's learning how to drive the very vehicle that we can use online for free. And if you don't know how to drive it, you can mess around, but you need to know all the parameters of what all the things on the dashboard look like. And prompt engineering is something so fantastic, which is great. Okay, superintendent, that was awesome. Let me ask you a couple more questions to dive in a little deeper. Can you provide some examples of how your students may have used technology or social media apps in a positive way, or even a productive way that has benefited themselves or perhaps their community?
Absolutely. And I'll start with another form of technology, which is called animatronics. So we have a partnership with a company, Garner Holt Productions, which resides here in our county. And if you're not familiar, you may not have heard of Garner Holt Productions, but world-class animatronics firm that produces all the animatronics for Chuck E. Cheese's and animatronics for Disneyland and other theme parks. And so we started a partnership where our kids go through 2-week boot camps and they get a bird that's just a white bird, but in this kit, They get modules on how to have the bird's movement take place with the arms and the legs, how to produce sound from different sources. And then they also have to make the bird artistic. And so I had this one eighth grade young lady show me her finished product just after 2 weeks. And it was a bird that had these neon covers, these black eyelashes, that was dressed in 70s disco attire. And she taught 70s aerobics. It was an incredible, final product that no one could have imagined this young lady can do. But because of the interest and engagement, and that's what technology does, is they engage students in learning. She was so excited and she did everything she could to learn more about the different ways she could control that bird to make this bird become a lie and something that was just incredible. And another example of technology where we engage students is through our esports. Students love to compete. And if you're an athletic and you're doing that with football and baseball, that's great. But sometimes students don't have the skills or they're not interested in those areas, but they get into gaming. And when you get with other students, you build that cooperative learning, that collaboration, that teamwork, and you compete through esports competitions that our county has set up a league for. These students are totally engaged. There's a waiting list at some of our high schools to get into the class, and some will even get on a waiting list after school to be in that class because that's when it may be more readily available because the electives and during the day are already filled up. When you get students engaged in technology, they're going to produce, but it has to be a way to accelerate learning and there has to be meaning behind it. And that's why these platforms that are thoughtfully creative. We've also had students create mobile apps so that as we look at employment, we have the Employables app. When we look at other types of areas, vaping, for example, we have apps that is gamifying ways to approach the problem through technology on these gaming mobile apps that have engaged students and students have helped create them. And we partnered with software companies to do that. So the partnerships with people that really know the technology and then having the creativity of educators to really work on ways to utilize that to accelerate learning has made a big difference in so many different areas.
Hit on a lot of really, really great things. I want to bring everybody up to speed on another keyword that you said. For any parents, district leaders nationwide that are listening to this or watching this, there was a keyword called Microsoft Copilot. And I really want to break this down for everybody. And at smartsocial.com, we serve hundreds of thousands of students nationwide. And we have these AI courses for parents. And I want everybody to know that anytime your student is programming or trying to learn something, whether it's calculus or anything else, AI is like a co-pilot. What does that mean? If you ask it for the answer, it doesn't give you the answer. It says, well, first, it's wonderful that you asked me and blah, blah, blah. And now I want to teach you how to deconstruct the problem. And I want to show you how we're going to arrive at. And at the very end, you have to scroll a lot. It teaches you what the answer to the calculus problem is. That works for programming. So if your students ever want to learn, and we highly suggest this, learn a little bit of HTML or programming, a little bit of art, a little bit of everything. If you ask it, hey, I want to program an app that does this, this, and this. Can you name the steps? Okay. And then step one, please dive in deeper. Teach me what the code would be and what do I need to learn? And you can be vague. It will say, well, you're going to need a server or you can use one of these things. And then it will give you the code. Another thing, parents, you can do and superintendents is if code is broken, students could put it in and say, please help me. Now they can do this at night when they're not in school in their coding class and they can say, hey, I got a problem. And then the AI will tutor them. Copilot by Microsoft is incredible because it helps you add in the JavaScript that you need. It says, hey, you're missing this parameter. Do you want to drop in the mapping element for the app on this section? You want to move it right. And the Copilot will finesse it in a way like a sous chef will. Like they'll do some of the work and you are the expert. And that's what the Copilot is, and that's really all of AI is your Copilot. Copilot's really good at programming. I mean, really great. And here's some of the stats I want everybody to know about. We're diving into nerd mode, but when we're talking about our kids' future, superintendent, I think you and I agree, nothing's too nerdy to inspire them to the future. The big tech companies that we work with say AI isn't going to replace jobs, but it's going to make this programmer way faster. So now a junior level programmer becomes as fast, if not faster, than a senior level programmer. And the accuracy is great. The late night fixes, working remotely and as a team, we can do stuff. So I want everybody to know you now have a world-class tutor on any language, parents and superintendents and everybody in between. And please sit down with your students to say, hey, let's go through this. I don't have this answer, but let's learn together. And there's always that option. We call it the side by side in the car. A lot of boys don't want to talk to their moms. But if you're sitting in the car, superintendent, as you know so well, they'll often talk when you're both looking at the front through the windshield. That is a great time to learn AI together. Let's sit down together and let's ask it and learn as we go. All right. You can tell I'm getting all riled up, which is awesome. Now let's dive into the next question. Let's talk about something really important nationwide. Before, in the beginning of Smart Social, I was one of the top 5 social media safety speakers in the country. I left Disney Studios, and I know about that animatronic company very well because I've been to Disneyland from the back end side of things. And as I used to be a public speaker, we had parent engagement nights. That is, it seems like one of the biggest things is how do we bring parents into the fold with educators to protect the students, right? Number one is at Smart Social, I'm always yelling out FTK for the kids. That's what we're doing. So I want to talk to you about parent engagement events. My biggest question for you is, what are your suggestions for other school districts for increasing parent engagement?
No, that's a great question. We're actually at the county that was selected by the state to be the lead for community engagement because every one of our districts in their plans have to engage parents and get input from parents. So we've shown models of success and how to bring parents in. And whenever you bring parents in, many times you can do it digitally and ask them for information if they can't make it physically to an event, but you want people to be in person as much as possible. And when you do events that connect them, it's wonderful. And I'll give you one example that just took place last night. I was at one of our schools in our county, and they had global connections that they worked with our county office on. So we hooked up live with 8 schools, I think 250 students from Taiwan. We did it at night because that's when you could connect live with Taiwan because of the time change. Taiwanese classes looked at our parents that were in the audience along with their students, and we had conversations with the student panel. And then we had some of our students do some dances. We had some of their students do some dances. But the whole time, everybody was so engaged because the technology now is at a level that real-time interaction can take place. This huge screen set up in a multi-purpose room. We had audio that was through speakers, so it was great audio, it was great visuals, and the excitement for the kids when they saw those Taiwanese students come online and they started to wave to them, you could tell they just wanted to jump through the screen to have that interaction because we set it up through pen pals that were done weeks before. So they already had some connection, but they didn't have that live interaction. So if you have events like that with parents, all parents will do their best to come. We've had literacy events. We have a platform that's called Footsteps to Brilliance that is provided to any parent free of charge through a partnership we have and with First Five and some other collaborative partners we have in our county that paid for this so that no parent has to pay for it. But if you're a parent with the child 0 to 5 or through 3rd grade, all the way, you can get access at no cost. And it really engages students in many different literacy activities so much that they can publish books, their own books, and they get awards. And you have that interactive with the parents so that they can know what we're trying to get students to accomplish. And once they do, here's how they get recognized and awarded certificates. And that relationships really brings parents into that. And when you have an in-person event that culminates with presentation of certificates and other things like that, the parents all come to participate in that. And once they feel that they're welcome and that districts want them there, and there's always kids at the forefront of why they're there, that's when the engagement really becomes incredible. But last night's event was a wonderful example. It was a full house of parents because of their excitement to see how this was going to take place with this live global connections event taking place.
What a great idea. It's so creative. And then you get to be there to meet and to listen to the community, which is terrific. Absolutely love that. I'd like to ask you a question that's on everyone's mind because we've talked a lot about the positivity. We've talked about how you're using tech to help students of all ages and varying levels, which is absolutely incredible. But all of us are wondering about safety. I want to ask you, what is your biggest technology or social media concern for the future?
No, that's a great question. There's 2 different areas. One is security, and that is hugely important. We have a huge emphasis on protecting the networks and security of all our districts because we've had over the last 4 years, 4 districts that have been hit with ransomware and it's taken down their networks. And we've had to bring in our experts to help them resolve that, plus let them have access to our equipment to take care of business functions, human resources functions, and those important areas. Fortunately, we're all in the same system. and we provide the software for business and HR transactions. So we're able to do that if a district goes down. But the dollars that it costs districts to get recovered from that was extensive. And so network security is hugely important. And we're constantly trying to provide and support our state through the K-12 high-speed network, which I'm on the board for, provides the training and the support for that statewide. And so we've taken huge advantages of that. But security is very important. And then social media. I mean, social media can be wonderful, but can also be extremely detrimental, particularly where areas of bullying and things that really go after students in negative ways that really can become extremely problematic. But there's also tools, technology tools that can help offset that. So what we try to do is really work with our districts to share with them what those tools are and really how to support the needs of parents and students and others that want to protect students. And one thing that we've done on our website is we have what's called the Cradle to Career Interactive. So our Cradle to Career roadmap really highlights the priorities for student success, 0 to 5, K-12, and post-secondary for academics, but also for personal readiness. So if you're a mom and you have a third grader who you want to know what are the best books to read to my third grader, go to the Cradle Career Active and it'll tell you. If you're a mom of an 11th grader, 12th grader who's having problems with substance abuse, go to our website and it'll give you the information on how to access vetted resources because all of it has been vetted through us. No one could just put their information out there without our team vetting it to make sure it's aligned. If you want to find out more about how can your student become more aware of cyber or computer programs or bullying or any of those topics, we have the resources on there. And we've developed partnerships too, because when we talk about parent engagement on that Footsteps to Brilliant platform I mentioned, well, we've also worked with our local PBS station, KBCR. So they started a program called Learn With Me, and it's 14 episodes related to literacy that involve teachers in our county that kids know actually showing and presenting information that's tied to the objective of that program. The first one, for example, was on prepositions. So I won't ask anybody what a preposition is, but if you watch our program, you'll know it for the rest of your life because it has animation on it. It has teachers that are fun. It has music behind it, English and Spanish. And everybody has talked about how wonderful it is. So those kinds of partnerships, when they're done for the best interest of the community, make all the difference in the world.
Oh, that's absolutely great. And what I'm sensing from you, superintendent, is, and I love this for other school districts nationwide, and not everybody has the budgets that some of us have, but you're scaling your parent engagement through this dashboard, which I absolutely love. And then as people have a question, it sounds like you're putting that into the resources,
Right.
into that bucket, as I call it, of all the answers, and they can go in there, probably in multi languages. But you're not only doing that, but you're also putting that personal touch on it, which I think is really important for our listeners to hear because the parent engagement events are very important nationwide with most superintendents. Hey, yeah, we're doing all these Zooms, but we also want people to come on campus and be able to meet the staff and their principal and say hi again. I love how you're combining those. Absolutely great.
And also making our because we have 2,400 employees, we have close to 500 managers. So, for example, and all of them touch other parents and neighbors and everything. So, what we've done with our managers, and we've offered it to the rest of the staff, is business cards that have a QR code on the back. So, if they're talking to a neighbor and says, "I'm struggling with my child in this area. Do you have any resources?" Sure, here's my business card. You look at the QR code; it'll take you right to the Cradle Career Roadmap. So, we're trying to make ambassadors of all of our staff because they know it and they love it, but we got to get that out to all the other people. And there's only so much advertising can do. It's really those personal touches that make a difference in building trust and support and collaboration across our communities.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I do love that tying that in. So let's dive into the next part. What suggestions do you have for parents to encourage their kids to use technology and social media as a part of that in a positive way, both in the classroom and at home?
Well, I think that one thing for parents to do is to understand that technology is going to only increase and it's only continue to increase at a rapid level. And children from the very moment they're born up until the time they go to school, they're going to have extensive exposure to it. So embrace it, but find out the best ways to have kids involved and the amount of times involved. There's links to areas that give parents, including our website, on how they should really manage the time that students are behind a screen or looking at social media, but always balancing that out with getting them involved in sports and dance and performing arts and other areas where they don't have that technology so they can build their social skills without having to rely on technology. I mean, so there's ways that it can be a huge benefit, but it's got to be cautioned, or there has to be some amount of restraint so that you can really have a well balanced approach to all students as they move forward in their different ages, whether it's that early age or middle school or senior level in high school. But no matter what, they're going to always be exposed to technology, but be smart and be thoughtful and strategic as a parent on how you're going to introduce other areas that'll take students off of that technology so they can engage in these other things that are so much important as well.
That's great. How do you see excessive time on social media apps impacting students in the long run?
Again, it goes back to that balance. If they're always behind a screen, if they're always in social media devices that have social media and other types of platforms that put them behind a screen, that's not good. They have to have that balance. And so as you look, especially in our classrooms, our teachers are really thoughtful and strategic about how much they use technology. There's definitely times to use it, and then there's times to use other types of approaches. For example, AVID is a program that we provide support to districts throughout our county. And it really speaks to what are the instructional delivery strategies that engage students without technology. I like that. And for example, one is Socratic seminars. Let's have a conversation with students about a topic where students are in a circular format and with another group behind those students interacting with them as they respond to questions. So there's teamwork and there's collaboration on the topic with no use of devices or computers or laptops or anything. It's really conversation. And those kinds of approaches really build that teamwork and collaboration, not having people working in silos behind a screen or on a device. So instructional strategies are really important for schools to emphasize that you need to have a balance across the board so that it's not always having students behind, especially now that some districts have adopted instructional programs, math and science and language arts, which is really digital, and students have to access it through laptops. So you have one-to-one devices for all students. That's a great approach, but students should always be behind that laptop. They need to have that laptop closed at times and involved in other areas. Performing arts, athletics, other areas that engage them in that kind of environment is hugely important to include.
Yeah, so well said. So we talked a little bit about how does it impact students, the screen time over the long run. What would your recommendation to parents be to help their kids K to 12 regulate their screen time, whether it's on a social media app or texting or YouTube, which so many kids seem to be glued to? What would your tips for parents be?
Parents need to be aware of the resources that are available. For example, one that we have on that Cradle to Career Interactive is Common Sense Media, which gives really good advice and guidance to parents on how to regulate that time. But also having that conversation with the teachers of your children. I mean, that's something that we've always recommended because once you know what your teachers are doing in the classroom and what advice and guidance they give the parent, then the parents can determine how they can implement that at home. I remember going way back to the time when I was a principal back in the 90s. And when we were trying to build literacy skills for students, the parents would say, well, it's just too much time on the TV. I'm trying to get them away from the TV. I said, well, you can regulate that by having, maybe 30, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever you think is appropriate at night. I go, but when that is on, put the closed captioning on as well. Because if students are also getting the closed captioning, I go, and then maybe for a portion of that time, turn off the volume with just the closed captioning, because now you're using that TV time to also build reading skills. So are there ways to do that with technology now? If you're going to be on your device, here are some things I want you to research or find out and get back to me. Otherwise, we're going to have to take it away. Those are things that strategies parents can learn and develop in a day-to-day basis that really makes it a win-win for them and their child.
Closed captioning is coming back too. It's so cool nowadays, right? I mean,
Yeah,
some people
that's
hate it, some people love it, but it's definitely interesting. And it's on TikTok is all closed captioning. It's becoming right here as well. What I mean by that is when you're watching somebody, but you're in a meeting, you turn the volume off and you can see what they're saying right under their words. It's so interesting how all of that is becoming cool again. Superintendent, I'm really grateful for all that you're doing to spread your knowledge to other school districts and parents and counselors and teachers and principals nationwide. Thank you for helping Smart Social protect them. For those of you that who are our current partners, thank you so much for bringing us into your community to host our 54 plus social media safety parent engagement night events that are on Snapchat, TikTok, We cover 140 of them. Thank you to our current partners. And thank you also to my army of incredible research people here at Smart Social. Let's dive into the last question that you have here, sir. Uh, what advice do you have for other school districts to deal with possible social media issues that may originate on an app, let's say TikTok, but then it creates a very real problem on one of your campuses that afternoon, the next morning, or Monday morning when we go back to school?
That's a great question. And to me, the best way is to continually educate each other through forums that really have the leverage and the power, if you will, to make it happen in a school district. So for us, it's with our superintendents. So we have 33 school districts. I meet with our superintendents every month. Every month we talk about priorities. But what we do at every one of our meetings is share best practices. And technology has come up many and many of times where we'll bring in a team from a school district to talk about how they're implementing AI, how they're protecting their networks. We've had lawyers come to our meetings to talk about, here are some of the cautions that you have with technology in these areas. And here's how to respond in case you get hit with the ransomware, in case you get hit with bullying, social media involving bullying. And here's how districts should best prepare themselves. So when you have that information consistently with superintendents and other leaders in a district, but really the people that can make that information known throughout all of the employees of a district and what the district is doing, what the protocols are, what the responsibilities are, then that really is key to having a successful program in any district, protecting students, protecting staff, but most importantly, protecting our students from areas that we don't want them impacted by. So that kind of approach I would recommend because it keeps it at the forefront and at the top levels of a district that really know the people that should have this information and protection on an ongoing basis.
I love that proactive approach. That's fantastic. Superintendent, I really want to thank you for your time here. You are savvy about your tech. It's great. We can tell that you care about the community. The rest of you superintendents, principals out there, parents, and everyone in between, we're here to protect you at smartsocial.com with 450 amazing resources in 10 different languages, in English audio, dubbed in Spanish, dubbed in Mandarin. We're grateful to the hundreds of thousands of people nationwide who support us to protect the kids. That's what we're here to do. At Smart Social, we keep students safe on social media so they can someday shine online so that when they're 25 years old, they're resilient, they're ready for the world with a great job, a career, and so on. And they are ready to navigate these digital waters that we have them in. So we're thankful to everybody who's supporting us. As always, keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for listening to our smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This was our District Talk segment where we interview school district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday launch into their future by shining online. This episode was brought to you by our smartsocial.com VIP program. It's called the Very Informed Parent Program, which helps you engage your students with teen-led video lessons. Stay one step ahead with our premium parent newsletter and discover hidden features on trending apps on teens' phones and our 54 plus live parent and student-friendly events every single year. You can click on the link below to chat with one of our team members if you want a free pass to our VIP program to support your community with our smartsocial.com resources. And if you're a district leader who has a success story, we would love to feature you on a future episode. You can click the links below to reach out. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day.